The report is on. I'm going to call to order the August 5th, 2024 committee meeting for the Lebanon City Council. And a roll call. Doing it by ward. Ward 1 is Whitty. Here. Stevenson. Here. Ward 2, Branch. Washington. Here. Ward 3, Trinka. Here. Davis. Here. Ward 4, Bennett. Here. And Farrell, I'm here. Hey, for the audience, if you have anything to say from the audience, any comments, we ask that you come up to the fence so that you're picked up by audio and video without a problem. And you're limited to 5 minutes. So, any audience participation?
My name is Nellie Beckwood. I think everyone probably heard of me about now or received the email from me. I'm here because I'm not satisfied with the work that was done to my area in front of my house. I don't know about anyone else, but mine is done improperly. And the gutter drain, I'm constantly saying is not right. I got an email. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for responding. I did have a few people that respond. I think Mr. Whitty, you responded and asked me to be here. But thank those that did ask me to be here, because I'm gonna be here. I'm not going away. So I'm gonna continue to come until I get something done. And so far, I've contacted quite a few people and I'm waiting on them to get back to me. But in the meantime, I want to work this within the city of Lebanon. If you don't want to work with me, fine, because I'm not going to close my mouth until I get some justice.
What are you saying?
I'm going to tell you that in a minute, Mr. Stevenson,
Okay.
because I sent it to you in an email. So I think you know, you didn't read it out right. Well, I'm saying that the gutter drain is called a gutter drain in front of my house on Janet Drive was done totally improper. Mine is sticking straight up like this. It should have a slope sloping towards the driveway and towards the street. None of that took place. I complained from July 11th until now. I'm still complaining. Okay, I did get a email saying that they had checked with the surveyors and that the surveyors and some more people gonna get together and come out and see if they can make adjustment. The driveway will definitely be repaired. I talked to the mayor Thursday night here in this city hall, and she said she's just glad it wasn't more than one property damage like that, because you all don't have the money. I don't know where it's gonna come from, but no one in here will want their driveway to be like that. I can't park in my driveway. I have a car in the garage that can't get out. I have an SUV that was going up there and tore out the splash guard underneath my SUV. And I'm gonna continue to drive up there. And one day when I went up over that, constantly got the push to go up, I heard a real loud noise, so I called the dealer. The dealer told me, don't go up that drive anymore, wait till your city repair your street. Now, Codian called me and said that I'm gonna get a steel grate. I never had steel grate. Guess what? I'm not getting a steel grate. I want that little area in front of my driveway repaired. Cause it's been like that 35 plus years. That's how long I lived there. Now, the people in 404 on Janet Drive, they had a grate for 35 plus years. Now, the way they did their drive and the gutter incline, no grate. My next door neighbor, he doesn't need a grate, not for his cars, but because he had a 4-wheeler, a 2-wheeler, a 3-wheeler motorcycle or something, it won't come out. But he's had a grate ever since 1989 when he moved there, because I was there before he moved there. So what I'm saying to the city, I want something done about my property, because it's my property that was destroyed by whoever these people were that you all hired to do the construction work. And that's unfair to me, unfair to my property, unfair to my neighbors. coming saying, ooh, Nelly, what the city saying? Nothing. We are all taxpayers. If this money came from, as the mayor told me, it came from, fuel, gasoline, fuel taxes. Well, I already paid the taxes. And you mean you're using my tax dollars to harm me? Oh, no, I ain't selling it for that one. And Cody, I would like, you keep telling me it's IDOT, give me the specs. On the pay item specs, cause that shows what you actually paying for. Not for what's coming out of your mouth on a piece of paper.
Yes, ma'am, you got the specs from Jeff Abel, those are what we follow.
I don't want
Keep that.
those, I want the pay item specs that the city hall is paying for. Cause it's public record.
We pay for them to run a laser, 2% grade.
I don't wanna know about the laser, I
That's
don't
what
wanna
your
know
pay item-
anything except for what the pay item
So your
says.
5 minutes is up on this.
Thank you.
You wanna hear just a little bit more?
Actually, Cody should not have come out here. This is the audience participation time. And we'll get a chance to talk later during this committee time. But right now, we're listening to 5 minutes. We have a 5-minute rule for audience participation. And that's an ordinance.
You can have my 5 minutes.
No, it's 5 minutes for the audience.
Oh,
Well, I will take it, cause I got 10 more minutes to talk.
Oh, I know, I communicated with you too. So we'll talk about this during the streets announcing portion. Is there any other audience participation, any other audience comments? Mr. Train,
Hi, Bill George. Yeah, Ron Training. There's been a lot of discussion here over the last year or so about what the city's spending for legal expenses. It's a problem. It's gotten out of hand. You guys keep writing ordinances, keep coming up with new ordinances, having difficulty enforcing the existing ordinances. Part of my complaint is let's enforce the existing ones before you continue writing, spending a lot of money to write new ordinances that may or may not hold up in court. The ordinance provision on rental inspections, I believe is up for discussion again tonight. It keeps coming back. I don't know where it's gonna end up. I've had a conversation with my attorney. He looked at what's been proposed. Or as he's concerned, there's several issues in that will never hold up in court. Hopefully we'll never end that. We'll never get to that point. They keep, you worry about rental properties, okay? You worry about problems. I had an issue a couple of years back. 203 West Chute Street. Tenant had issues with me, said the place wasn't fit to live in. Came up City Hall, complained. City inspector, Dale was the inspector at that point in time. Came down, did an inspection, found nothing serious, no big problems. End of problem. What I'm trying to say is there are ways to deal with this stuff. There was an issue, the other big problem I have with this whole thing is, you're all concerned about health and safety of the citizens. You're concerned about the rental property. Nobody seems to care about if it's owner occupied. I sat here at a meeting, some of them last year. Sherry, you were there. There was a discussion. You had a discussion about a lady that lived in the southeast quadrant of town, was living in a home that wasn't livable, had animals in it. Mice, rats, was not fit to live in. She finally replaced it with a modular home. The comment then was the city couldn't do anything about it. I got a problem with the fact that the city cannot do anything about an individual that's living in a home that owns it, that it isn't fit to live in. Go through your ordinances, go to the county health department. There's ways to deal with this. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. And by the way, that house is still sitting there, still falling down next door, which nothing has been done about. Thank you. Covered most of it, I think. Yeah, they're worried about rentals. I can show you owner occupied homes all over this town that are in worse shape, or just as bad or worse shape than any rental in this town. You need to worry about all of it. It looks bad, it's not being taken care of, it needs to be addressed. I think the new inspector is trying to catch up. He's got about 20 years worth of stuff to catch up on. He's got a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Anybody else? We have one person online. And I forgot to tell you earlier, if you're online, you cannot speak, but you can do the chat. And if you have a question or comment, you can put it in the chat. It will not be addressed tonight, but we'll have a record for the record. And we can address it later. Okay, the older person comments are not on here, however, for the 4 committees that are on the agenda tonight, you have a chance for during your committee to make any additional comments. Are there any comments from the committees that are not on the agenda? Alderperson? Linda, Washington?
Yes, at our last session, Cody brought up about, Ward 2 and about us bringing stuff to the council. Well, I'm gonna continue to bring stuff to the council. The council needs to know what the residents are thinking. And that's exactly what I'm gonna continue to do. And has a problem with it, so be it. But I also know that he brought up the fact that they're working down there. They're working down there because of the grants. And we know that. Before they started applying the grants, they did very little work down there. So, there was no reason for him to call himself going off on us. I did not appreciate. But it's okay for him to say whatever it is he wants to say. But when Yolanda or myself want to say something, there's a problem. And that's not right.
Members of the council can say anything, they can speak up during this portion where we have alderperson comments, they're free to do whatever. And at any point in the meeting, even if it's not on the committee meetings, even if it's not your committee night, you can come up under new business and bring something up. May not be able to act on, we don't act on anything anyway, at least we can bring it up. So you know, I understand, I didn't hear anybody saying council members can't bring things to the council. You can bring them.
He did. He said, come knock on his door. If we have a complaint, to bring it to him, knock on his door. I'm not doing that. I'm bringing it to the council.
Yeah, you're welcome to do that. It's just been good business practice that if you have an issue with an individual and an organization, the first person you go to is that individual. You don't go to the top immediately.
That doesn't work for me. I have to do what works for me.
Okay, you're welcome, you're fine. You're allowed to do that, you're right.
John,
Yes, go
I
ahead.
understand a comment, but it's a question on
Sure.
question. In regards to getting back online, what day does the young man show up to read, if anybody knows? But I didn't realize the young lady had sent an email, I'm missing a few emails and before I wanted to say, I've been kind of knocked offline here. Does anybody know?
He's here on Tuesday,
Go tomorrow,
tomorrow, the afternoon or the 1:30?
1:30, okay.
That's why I've come in to get things up 1:30 on Tuesday. Because when he comes in, he will be taking the recording from this and uploading it to a YouTube page that we're establishing. Okay, so they'll be available to anybody to review the meeting afterwards. Any other alderperson comments? Okay, moving on to the cemetery committee.
The sign is still in progress. We're waiting for some stone. They said, Harry Chris said it would take about 5 weeks. I think it's been about 2 or 3 in this so far. And the fellow doing the ironwork needs to have the stonework there. And we need some caps for some of the brickwork, so I'm not sure when it's gonna occur. I jokingly say it'll end up before the end of December. But it's gonna take a while. There's a few things that need to be done and brought in, but it is still in progress.
Anything else, Mr. Trinka?
That's it.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Ordinance Committee, we have a long list of items. Some of them are gonna be fairly easy, some of them will probably be harder. The first item on establishing a special service tax district. I visited with one of the auditors that was here a few weeks ago, who is expert on that. And he recommended against that and instead suggested establishing a TIF district. And we could do pretty much the same thing with funding it through a bond. And fund it using TIF district dollars that we would know once they're flowing in what they are. And that would tell us how much we can then spend on it. Otherwise, we have to. The special service tax district takes away some of our control of the monies.
Who was that person that said that?
Pardon?
Who was that you talked to?
Who was that? Chris? Chris, what's his last name? Oh, one of the auditors' name was Chris.
Oh, one of the auditors?
One of the
was here?
auditors was here,
Oh, okay,
county auditor, so we got it from the horse's mouth.
sure.
So, he suggested a TIF district, Mike even suggested at one time as a TIF district. He suggested Mike suggested, our attorney suggested doing an overlay over the whole city. I don't buy that. Because that locks in the taxes for the entire city, so we would not be able to take advantage immediately of any tax increase. But in that area, basically, it sets the tax rate, and then we can use the TIF funds, which means every year they're paying in taxes. We grab those taxes and we could use those funds for the street improvement. It's improving the area and the TIF district.
Just curious then, when do we get the actual tax money? Is that a quarterly or semi-annually or
Or annually, yearly, yeah, we get it once a year.
once a year?
But we would be making, if we were to do a bond, which we can do a bond. We are bondable now. The tax rate isn't gonna be the greatest, but it's still gonna be a lot lower than taking out a bank loan. We could do a bond over 20 years and pay it out over 20 years, probably at 3 or 4% interest, which is pretty low. So I'm suggesting that we look at, explore a TIF district. There's a possibility of probably 2 TIF districts in the city, from what I've been picking up in various discussions. One for that project and another one for the industrial park along Route 50 where, what's the company, what? Former Schwann's restaurant in that area, so that those funds could be used for infrastructure there. In the events, once the Schwann's restaurant is in, if there's more property there that could be utilized, somebody might come in and do something else that would generate tax dollars. And they could use the TIF funds for the infrastructure. And in other words, anything below ground, we can take care of with the TIF money.
So George, you're dropping number 1 in favor of number 3 on the.
Yeah, I'm probably number 1 in favor of number 3.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. The description of deputy clerk position. We have not really, we've discussed that is in the ordinance that was written. That would separate the clerk and the collector and create a deputy clerk. And has all information, so we need to discuss that, but that's something that we need to get past now, because on August the 20th, petitions would go out, and we have to know, we've already made the treasurer an appointed position. We need to know if we're going to create a deputy clerk that will be an appointed position and essentially take over most of the duties of the clerk. and has the authority of the clerk when the clerk is not in the building. That's basically the way it works.
And basically, if we don't do that, then the manual that's been working on is useless.
For the, in terms of the clerk.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it would be, we would have be where we are right now with an elected clerk and an appointed collector that follow the same term as the mayor. As a matter of fact, even the deputy clerk follows the same term as the mayor, but, or the same term as the clerk. And let me get my thoughts straight. The clerk is elected, the deputy clerk is appointed. Most of the salary goes to, or excuse me, the collector. The way it is right now, we have a clerk collector combined position. The ordinance would separate those two positions. It would eliminate the elected clerk and, or excuse me, it would eliminate the collector's role and create a deputy clerk. The deputy clerk is appointed with the approval of the city council by the clerk. And it's a 4-year term. So the deputy clerk's there for 4 years. However, the deputy clerk will probably build such knowledge of the position, somebody would probably be a fool to appoint a new deputy clerk at the end of the 4-year term, because the deputy clerk is not elected. If we don't make this change now, it'll be 4 years before we can make the change again. Try to make it. That's the urgency. We've been talking about this since January, just pushing it down the road. Now it's time to make the recommendation and do it. We haven't established a salary. We do not need to establish a salary for another couple of months because we have to look at all the salaries.
Well, why don't you just call for a vote?
We can't vote. What we can do here is by consensus, recommend that it be taken to city council next week for a vote and not have somebody table it again.
We can also make a motion that, it goes on.
We don't motion here. Unfortunately, this is
Well, then what else is there to say?
is there a consensus? What are your beliefs? You want to move forward with it? Charlie?
I still don't see the accountability. I mean, to me, it's. Like I said last time, I think it's like we've got all our eggs in one basket or so. To me, it sounds no different than Luann being the clerk collector right now.
It isn't all the eggs in one basket because the deputy clerk has their responsibilities. And the city council can hold the deputy clerk accountable for those and ask for and provide the supervision. Right now, everything is in one basket and you've got one person handling all the paperwork for the city, essentially, and all the monies for the city in one basket. The treasurer could do more. Once we have an appointed treasurer, that treasurer could do more. We could put some of the things on the treasurer that are currently on the collector. The collector is doing some of the treasurer's work. And we have to really define those roles, but we have, and from now until May 1st, to define those roles and get them in. If we don't keep kicking things down the road like the council's been doing by tabling things and taking them off the agenda.
What feedback do you get from, the auditors? They should say something about, too much of one person. It needs to be segregated a little bit more, some of the money, or what? Do they give any advice or they just come in and count it and be done?
They look at all of our paperwork. I think we got a clean bill of health this time. We don't have the audit back yet, but
They should have some recommendations, shouldn't they?
there will be when they give us the audit back. It'll be a little while before we get it. You'll all get a copy of it. It's a little book about this thing and has all the recommendations, etc. Our money handling has been good so far. There haven't been any, there, in the 6 years I've been on, 6+ years going on 7, on my 7th year, there have been no issues with money handling in the city hall. The issue is to separate the jobs so that the clerk collector is almost an impossible job to do for one person.
Does it state that the elected clerk appoints the deputy clerk,
with the approval of the advice and consent. The legal term is advice and consent. The city council has to approve that appointment.
but do we have any idea who the city clerk might be and what qualifications they
We
might
can
have?
establish, if the clerk is, we have no control over the clerk. The clerk is elected. All the person has to do is be a resident and be registered to vote and be a US citizen, and they can run for clerk. The deputy clerk, we can write up a complete job description and all the duties and the requirements for the position. What are the requirements to apply for this position? Qualifications. Right now, we don't have any ability to do that with the clerk. With the deputy clerk, we can.
George, would that, deputy clerk, would they be union or non-union?
They would be non-union. Because they'll have some supervisory responsibility.
I read the job of the clerk and new personnel manager, and it's rather encompassing.
Right, forget the personnel manual, because once we do this, May 1st, it'll be a different description of the personnel manual. That is a very encompassing position. And all of that is by statute. The deputy clerk will be taking on most of that responsibility. The clerk will still have the responsibility. The deputy clerk will be doing the work. The deputy clerk's gonna get the money, the high salary. The clerk's salary is probably gonna go down to about $6,000.
I thought it was already 6.
It is,
It'd stay the same.
unless we recommend a slightly higher amount in the next few weeks. Because we have a couple of things that are really deadline driven. And I'm saying this not because I'm trying to take charge, only because I'm the person running this meeting. But there are a number of issues that we must complete by November the 1st, roughly. November the 1st, the salaries for all elected positions have to be established 180 days prior to the election. The election is on April 1st, so we have to have those established by November 1st.
The whole thing come about because of the us wanting a second accountability, person that's got accountability for this job.
Or social.
Take that out of it and not put it in here. Seems redundant, or it's like we're just shooting ourselves in the foot here.
No,
We're not gaining anything.
we're gaining a lot, actually. I don't see.
We don't get what we're looking for though.
Pardon?
That's not what we asked for, or that's not what we've been trying to get.
Accountability? Accountability is in the law. The accountability is in the law. And the accountability for the deputy clerk will be in the description we provide that describes what their responsibilities and their duties are. And they'll be evaluated by the mayor and the clerk. We can write that in the description, but we have to do this before August 20th. We have the 12th and we have the 17th. We have 2 more, actually, we have the 12th. And 7 days from the 12th is the 19th, and that's a committee meeting. So we have 12th of August, this decision has to be made. And we have been discussing it since January. Everybody has been saying we need to separate the positions, but now that you're ready to get a vote on this thing, you're saying, no,
We still asking for the same thing we were originally,
what?
the
How-
accountability portion of it.
Has anybody bothered to give me some language to put in there for the accountability? I've asked for it.
Yeah, you asked me for it last week while I was in Myrtle Beach. at
No, no, no.
2 o'clock in the morning, so I could get it answered back to you.
In the meetings, as we've been going on, I keep saying, give me information. If you don't, if you always, I get all this, this at work, I don't like it, but what don't you like? What would you like in writing? We have 1 more week to get it in there. What would you like in writing? That's the question. Actually, for the manual, I've had, now that the employees are realizing, wait a minute, we gotta do this. I've gotten recommendations back from them for the manual. Which is another item on the agenda, but I don't do this stuff off my head. I don't create it. I go out and I research what other cities have, and what I've set up is exactly what other cities with deputy clerks have.
split the two jobs back apart. Same thing.
Yeah, we're splitting it. We're splitting the clerk and the collector. But so that we have somebody who can do the collector's job without being called a collector, we call that person a deputy clerk. See, the clerk is only a part-time job. For $6,000 a year, we're not gonna find somebody who can come in here and do all that work the clerk does, which is a 40-hour, most places they're working 40 hours for $6,000. But in order to make it a more accountable position, because a deputy clerk by statute has the authority of the clerk when the clerk is not here. That's why it has to be called deputy clerk. Basically, it's the same two positions. Basically, it's the same two positions if you look at it that way, except one of them are changing the title from collector to deputy clerk. That's the difference. If I put this on the agenda again for next Monday and I get another table it, I don't like it, vote against it, guess what? It'll be 4 years before we can do anything because the next week petitions go out. That's all things are backed up a month now. We're under the pressure. This is it.
Do we have a designated job description for just the clerk and then just for the deputy?
The clerk's, the job description is the same as it's in the manual. That's in statute. That's in statute. That's an awful lot of responsibility, but that is in statute. The deputy clerk's job description is the same as the clerk's. Because by statute, the deputy clerk can do all the responsibilities, including signing documents, as the clerk can in the absence of the clerk. But we must have an elected clerk. That's required, that we have an elected clerk. So,
With the same qualifications now, just a citizen, whatever, it's a three, what you mentioned.
just a citizen,
Yeah.
a registered voter, and lives in the city.
I don't know about anybody else, but it seems kind of strange to me. I mean, they work fine. But you have a person who's going to be elected for $6,000 per year. You want to cut down on the responsibilities, I guess, that the current clerk has. But then you're wanting the clerk, who is an elected person, to appoint someone who makes 7 or 8 times more money than they do. So therefore, it looks to me like the clerk, if he or she did not want to come in, they can make themselves really scarce and still put it all on the deputy clerk.
That's what's happening.
Once again, and that gets back to the deputy clerk, in my opinion, has all the responsibility of the monies. And that just doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't sit well.
The deputy clerk really doesn't have responsibility for the money. The deputy clerk doesn't have to handle money, except for those things that have to go flow through the clerk's office anyway.
George, who's gonna handle the money?
Well, that's what we have to decide. The deputy clerk can be given that responsibility. The
You
deputy
just
clerk,
said the deputy clerk doesn't handle.
no, it doesn't have to. But we have to have a check and balance in the office between the accountant and the deputy clerk. Or the accountability is the clerk overseeing the deputy clerk, the mayor overseeing the deputy clerk. There are forms, there are laws, things have to balance. There are balance sheets. Carlisle has the deputy, has this model. That's where I took the model from. It's the city of Carlisle. Works fine over there.
George,
They're not in home rule, so.
who sets the standard, is it a statute, a state that sets the salaries cap? Who does that?
We do.
So. If the city or the council or whoever sets that standard. Of the 6,000
Or 7,000.
or 7,000. And they're part-time. Is it feasible to make them full-time?
Well, then you would have somebody running for the office for the money, whose only qualifications to run for the office is be a resident, be a US citizen, be registered to vote. That's the problem. And that person then, but that high salary would have all these responsibilities of collecting the minutes, taking the minutes for all the meetings, publishing the minutes, doing all the documents, doing all the certifications, swearing people in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they would be, there's nothing, we have no control over that qualification. This is a dilemma that is being seen in a lot of cities. There's no control over that qualification. Is people don't always run for service. You know, for $100 a month, I'm not in this job for the money. I'm in it for the service to improve the city and have the city be as strong as it can be. And after seeing this and hearing the complaints and hearing all the work that's being done and realizing that if we continue along the path of having the clerk collector position to combine, it's the same difference right now with accountability. Who's accounting for the collector?
Clerk has all the job, has the authority. But the deputy clerk is doing all the work,
So they're gonna be paid for it too.
but they won't have any authority.
Yes, they do. They have all the authority of the clerk in the absence of the clerk. When the clerk is not in this building and the deputy clerk is in this building, the deputy clerk has all that authority.
What if they disagree?
It shouldn't. Once the deputy clerk has signed something in the name of the clerk, it's done. In fact, it's even in the ordinance how things have to be signed.
Is there some way to get past all of this stuff, okay? And get some kind of a resolution? I would think, going back to the auditors, okay? Who know money and know how to structure things so that somebody doesn't walk off with the money or whatever. Since there's an impasse, why don't we get a hold of the people that did the audit, okay? Why are you shaking your head?
I'm shaking my head because they're now tasked with writing up the audit. We can't really go to them.
Who says? There's nothing wrong with that.
They're people from the county and they're off at another audit, right? They're working on our audit. They're writing it up. And our audit was not of the clerk. The audit was dealt with the accountant and the tax money's coming in, making sure our checking accounts are correct, making sure that we have ordinances, whatever we spend money, we've got it properly documented, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a long
So the
report,
person who's really holding all the cash, nobody
right?
looked at them.
No,
Looked at
they
them.
have an accounting, they look at our accounting procedure and our cash handling procedures, and they're appropriate. It's one of those things where, I'm not the expert on that.
Don't you think we ought to stop talking about it?
I think we ought to move ahead and get this into a vote next Tuesday. Be very frank, to get it passed, get the positions separated, and we'll have 10 months to work out those little details. Because we have to then write the descriptions of the jobs. We have 10 months to do that.
If we were to change our mind,
We can't put them back together for 4 more years, because we have to, the elected clerk would have to know this.
okay,
We've been very fortunate that for 40 years, we've had clerks that have been doing a good job. It scared me, to be very frank, it scared me at the last election and the qualification of one person was running for clerk. Who probably had enough connections and popularity in this town to get elected. We don't know who's gonna run for these roles. You know, somebody could have moved into town last April, actually, last month in April. And they have to have been a resident for 1 year to be the mayor. They gotta move into town in April, takes petitions out in August, gets on the ballot, and runs for mayor. Having never lived here except for those few months, and not knowing anything about the community. Who's doing it only for the big salary of $6,000.
I say let's,
I got another question.
keep going back and forth, back and forth.
That's right.
Cut it off.
This is still on topic, but it's off topic too, because another attachment that we had on our ordinance
Yeah,
was an ordinance for the amending the city code to amend the clerk position to create the deputy clerk
correct.
and the treasurer position and amend the city collector position.
Right.
When you go down through here, there's a couple of things that are wrong with that. Building inspector is appointed by the mayor. This and says appointed officers. Go down the city clerk. So. Ready?
Which communities have done this? And they had any, on,
Carlisle's been doing this for years.
Underneath the deputy clerk, it says, the position of the deputy city clerk is hereby authorized and established. Said position shall be filled by appointment by the mayor and the advice and consent of city council. Said deputy again, said city clerk shall have the powers of the duty set forth in the by ILCS 5/31 3.1-35 subsection B, including all duties of the clerk set forth in the division 3 of the ordinance, and the clerk is present.
Right.
Okay, but it says in here, it's established by the mayor and another appointed of the mayor.
That's,
Is that just,
that's gonna be an error. That's gonna have to correct it because the statute says it's appointed by or
clerk,
so, because I seen that in there, and I'm like,
yeah,
well, that, there's a lot to be appointed by the mayor, everything, several jobs that would roll over.
right. There's the,
That makes a lot of work for a part-time mayor.
right. But the mayor, well, I've got a solution to that too, but that'll be another time. Mayor. The clerk does that appointment. The mayor appoints. All of the employees are technically appointed by the mayor. With the advice and consent of the city council. All positions that are appointed, those are the office positions, the street department, even though the supervisor makes the recommendation. The appointment's coming from the mayor, water and sewer, the superintendent makes the recommendation. The mayor does the appointment, and that's a common practice. And then the city council votes on it. It's the same thing in the school district. Superintendents make the recommendation to be hired, but the Board of Education has to approve it. It's the common, that's in all our governmental agencies in Illinois that operate the same way. Pretty much. Do you want me to put, is this something that I want to put on the agenda next week? I'm gonna put it on the agenda. And it's gonna get voted on. And I'm anticipating there'll be at least 5 of us that will vote for it. Otherwise, we're doing a disservice to this community, the service to the position. We'll probably be looking for, anybody could run for clerk right then. So in beginning August 20th, anybody could run for clerk. And if they have enough friends and relatives in the community, get elected as clerk. And we have no control who that person is, and who also is the collector.
The only thing, George, you're still not solving it, up to a certain point. Up to a certain point, because the clerk's position is still gonna be an elected office,
Right,
correct?
correct.
So you still, in a sense, you're not solving what you're trying to, all you're doing is shifting a workload.
But the clerk is gonna be, the elected clerk is gonna have a minimal they're gonna have on paper tons of responsibility. But the person who's gonna do the job and who's gonna be paid to do the job is a professional who is probably an accountant or CPA, somebody who's gonna be running that job and is gonna have qualifications that the city council establishes. Like we establish qualifications for collector, but you see, that's just it. It doesn't matter what qualifications we establish for the collector. By our ordinance, if you're elected clerk, you're automatically the collector.
Okay. Here's what I'm saying, Jordan. You're still not solving because the clerk still oversees the deputy clerk. What if
Right.
someone else through election get in there that really don't know how to operate that office and overseeing someone that is professional?
Because
And then there's gonna be a problem there, bumping heads.
if we have a deputy clerk in place. And somebody is elected in the position. They could recommend somebody else be deputy clerk, but the deputy clerk is still gonna be there and can be appointed with the advice of the consent of the city council and say, no, we want this person. And we keep the deputy clerk who has all the experience. You'd have to really have a major turnover in the city council, which by the way, has happened in the last several years. There was a time on the city council when 5 members of the city council were appointed by the mayor. But we all have enough, we have enough, what's the term I want to use? We feel strong enough about what we do, for the good of the city that we do it. We're not trying to do it for myself. I'm not trying to separate these positions for me, I'm doing it for the city. I'm recommending it for the city. Okay, go ahead, Mayor.
Is there a reason why the clerk doesn't run for election as is? And separate the two positions, but interview and hire the proper deputy clerk?
Yes, the current clerk can run for clerk. Get elected clerk. And we'll interview and appoint.
No, I didn't say appoint, I said interview and be hired as a Cody, a Michelle, a Heather.
I would have to do some research, and I'd have to ask Mike to do some research, but I believe an elected officer cannot also hold a paid position. in
What's
the
been happening for 4 or 5 years, 8, 10, 12 years now.
Who?
Pam was elected and a hired position.
Right, that was the
So if
combined,
we separated them, they become 2 different positions,
right,
which then you will get. You won't get a friend of the clerk who may or may not know who's on first and what's going on. But you would get a hired position.
right, and that I think is a good idea. We just need to ask Mike if it's legal. In my experience, that was happening because the statutes allowed for the clerk to also be the collector. That's in the statute, that's why that.
But it wasn't like that until a previous clerk collector got on. It was always separated.
Yeah.
So. If it wasn't legal, they weren't doing it legal years ago.
Right. I don't know when the statutes were changed or where they were, but that's something to consider. We'd have to ask Mike, and I have 5 days to ask him, 6 days to ask him.
I'll ask him now.
I'm just joking, but maybe Mike could be the collector.
You just what?
I'm just joking, but I said maybe Mike could be the collector.
So one way or another, this is gonna be on the agenda next week. And we'll have an opportunity to vote. I suggest that between now and noon on Wednesday, because that's when the agenda has been, actually, we can do the attachments to the agenda later. If you got anything to recommend and change, get it to me and I'll put it in there and send it out to everybody. You can send me your individual comments, you just can't email everybody. Excuse me.
What Sherry suggested, does that seem to be viable?
It could be viable if the law allows it. That's the only thing I don't know. I don't know if the law
I
allows
think
it.
that would satisfy several of us.
Right, 'cause that would mean that the elected clerk could appoint herself as the deputy clerk if she's reelected.
No, none of she had to be elected.
Yeah. She would be, is it possible for, the question is it possible for the elected clerk to recommend him or herself, themselves, to be the deputy clerk if they meet the qualifications?
Well, then we could vote them out.
Yeah. We can vote out only the deputy clerk. We can't vote out the clerk.
No, that's what I meant, whoever they were saying,
Right.
the,
We could say, no, we don't want you as deputy clerk.
that's what I mean.
Well, that's kind of what you're saying, George, you're getting people confused. You say the clerk can appoint the deputy clerk with the advice of with the consent of council,
Right,
correct? I mean, you have to add that on there, because you've been saying just the clerk can appoint the deputy clerk.
with the advice
Yeah.
and consent of the council.
We need to get us a big chalk or a big, something up there so we can write it down and show everybody what's going on, because it gets a little twisted sometimes.
I've been reading this stuff for 8 months from other cities. And the ordinances, it appears to work in other cities. What we're doing actually has been where there have been problems. Because you end up with an elected clerk, doesn't have any qualification. And has to learn a job from scratch, which means the city could be hurting for 6 months to a year or so before they learn the position. See, right now, we have a clerk who's been in that position for going on 8 years. And really understands it and knows it.
Well, I'd like for you to check the legality of, having some people apply for the job of deputy clerk. And then we can approve or disapprove, the
That's what I
best
meant.
candidate.
Yeah,
That's
we
what
can,
I meant.
we can interview a bunch of, the person could recommend people to us, and, 2 of us could sit on the interview.
Yep.
But not 3 of us.
Well, George, and I think I'm fine for this. But then, I'm not knocking what you're attempting to do, I think that's good. But I'm just having a hard time trying to accept that this is a part-time job, when to me, a simple solution, unless there's a statute. Something ordinance against, make them a full-time position from the mayor to that deputy, that clerk. I'm failing to catch that, because we keep singing the song about we don't have the finances. But then we go out here and we're gonna hire somebody in addition to this other person. I do understand what you're trying to avoid. There's an election as someone applies for election, but I'm having a hard time with the finances.
Basically, right now, the clerk is paid, I believe, about $48,000 a year. And there is, the collector is paid $48,000 a year. The clerk is paid $6,000 or $7,000 a year.
Okay.
6,000 a year. So basically, out of that, we're still gonna have that $6,000 a year for the clerk. And the deputy clerk's gonna get 48,000.
In addition,
No. Right now, it's the same way now. Right now, it's 6 plus 48, $54,000. For the clerk collector. The bottom line is the same right now. We don't look at the salaries, but the bottom line is the same right now. But we're gonna say, okay, we're no longer, it's gonna be separated positions, it's separated salaries. $6,000 is gonna go to the clerk, and 48,000 will go to the deputy clerk. Who is full-time? Because there's nothing in statute that says the clerk has to be full-time. The statutes are very loosely written on this.
I have emailed mine tomorrow.
Okay. We may hear from them. We hear from them later. We'll talk
I gave
about
them a
it.
deadline.
Huh?
I gave them a deadline.
Okay, so can we move on? I'll put this on the agenda, and if there's any changes between now and next Monday, we'll get them. The bottom line, money is the same. The accountability is actually gonna be better because it's gonna be two people instead of one person. And the salaries will be split. It's not gonna be, you're gonna pay the money to the deputy. The deputy has, by statute, all the authority of the clerk when the clerk is not in the building. The clerk could be in the building, but saying, I'm not here as a clerk, I'm here as a person. Let's move on. Second is TIF district. There's a lot of process involved in the second, going to second TIF district. I'm gonna have to put this off until we can identify the boundaries of that TIF district and how many we're gonna have. And there's a process that will have to be followed. It will cost us money to establish the TIF district, but it will also bring money in for us to use.
Establishing two,
Alright.
in favor of two TIF districts.
Yeah, I'm suggesting, based upon what I've got through discussions, two TIF districts. One TIF district that involves that southeast quadrant of the city, that's the south of, actually, you could extend a little bit north. We could extend it, it's easier to put a new TIF district than it is to change the boundaries of an existing one. But we could use that, the industrial park area, it's not industrial park, but that industrial park area, and extend it up to include. Extend it up to include, I was given a map at one time, Chris properties and a few other properties. So we be freezing the taxes there and be able to use any improvements or increases in the taxes for the TIF. In other words, we can use them to improve the roads where they've been damaged by those heavy trucks. And it'll be their tax dollars that are paying for it, not everybody else's.
We are limiting that to the companies that are the heavy trucks, hopefully, and not penalizing like CK who drives a 2,500 truck in a trailer, or Pressure Pump Supply who drives a 1,500 pickup. Like Ms. Washington pointed out, I did go out and talk to them. I do believe their recommendation is why are they being penalized for having a regular pickup truck? They would like to see it be the overloaded or oversized load vehicles. That's something we can have written in there. I think that's a great suggestion.
Boundaries have to be contiguous. We can't take a hole in the middle of it. They must be
We wouldn't have a
contiguous.
gap there.
And they're not being charged more taxes. Actually, they'll be able to utilize the taxes they're paying for improvements on their infrastructure improvements on their property.
I was just making sure,
They're not gonna get an
CK
increase.
CK wanted to make sure that they weren't gonna pay extra taxes because their linger cranes are heavier. That
Well,
was their
it's-
concern.
That's why we're doing away with the special service tax district, because they could say no, and we wouldn't have 51% of the property owners saying yes. But my recommendation is to go forward the TIF district, and if it's okay, I'll go forward and getting information and maps back to us. Personnel manual. We need to make a vote on that. My recommendation, the issues that are coming to me right now are all related to attachment 1. It is attachment 1. It is not the manual. Everything before attachment 1 is the personnel manual with the policies. We will finally have a harassment policy. We will have some other policies that our attorneys have gone through this thing. The latest copy you have is the one I have right now. Our attorneys are regularly emailing and saying, by the way, we should do this. But what it does is it really tightens and strengthens our personnel policies. And I'm recommending that we pass the manual and we continue working on attachment 1, and we can always change attachment 1. Now, we have to have something in there. Attachment 1 is job descriptions. So we have job descriptions. Problem is that we have people who were hired and their jobs evolved and what they're doing doesn't match their description. That's one problem. Second problem is we have administrative assistant. We have only one description for administrative assistant. And I'll let you all talk in a minute here. I received an email from one of the administrative assistants who came up with a great idea. And she's probably discussed it with the others. When things got moved around here. Got too many papers. I got that camping ordinance is taking up a lot of room. No, I picked it up. But she's recommending there should be, there should be three or four administrative assistants. Because we have what, 1, 2, 3 right now. And they should each have a little difference in their title, so their positions are different.
Who are the assistant administrator?
I got Tricia for the water and sewer department. By the way, the current administrative assistant position description is for that position. And so it talks about collecting water and sewer stuff. That's the problem with it. I got a Beamer subdivision. Where'd it go? Anyway, I can look it up here in my phone. On the stats, we go right to the now. But have one of them be, yes. Okay, I have a problem here, let me find it.
Where are we?
We are talking about on the agenda, which I moved and got it and stuff. Here it is. We are now talking about the personnel manual.
Oh,
So my recommendation is that we move forward with the personnel manual that we've been editing and our attorneys have gone through. And we've had multiple passes by attorneys and they're still finding things and fixing them a word here, a word there. And, but the, let me look for this so I can punch numbers. I can get it. I'm not on the internet here, so I can't go out and get the big stuff. But she was recommending changing the title. I'll send that to you. I can't get it. I thought I printed it.
You know, this personnel policy as it has evolved, first started out as a mystery document on Sherry's desk.
Forget that. Drop that. I'm gonna tell you right now, in my opinion, forget that manual, forget it, it even exists. They went through a shredder. That has nothing to do with anything we're talking about.
I know it doesn't, but why did we start with that? We
I
hadn't
don't
even
know.
talked about personnel.
I don't know. All of a sudden, I heard about a manual and it was, we were talking about a manual and I never even saw that manual. So I don't know what that's talking about. And the other manual, finally, we looked back and we've realized that in 2019, a manual was approved. And that's the manual that everybody's been following since then. The only problem is that, the biggest problem is it didn't have a couple of policies that we really needed. Because, we had some policies that were really needed that we didn't have. Well, the administrative, this one here is useless. I was looking for the recommendations to it. Here it is. She's recommending that there are 3 different titles for the 3 administrative assistant positions. One would be administrative assistant billing. Handles the water department, the billing for the water department, all those issues. Administrative assistant general, that would be the person who does general work as for everybody. Just clerical work, answers the phone, works at the counter. And then there would be an administrative assistant for permits, projects, and perhaps something else. The administrative assistant for permits and projects would be Stephanie's position. The administrative assistant in general would be Heather. And Tricia would be the administrative assistant for billing. and we write those as job descriptions to fit what they actually do.
That's
Now,
wonderful.
we also have, an issue with the, water sewer department, and Cody sent me something that needs to be left in there, and we'll leave it in there and not change it. Basically, we have time to change those. We don't have to change those before we pass the manual, because they're an attachment to the manual. And our attorneys agree, they're an attachment to the manual. And the issues, the problems that are coming up are with the attachments, people complaining about the attachments. What we have in the manual now is cleaner language, we've gotten rid of positions that no longer exist. We have a policy on harassment, we have a tighter policy on dismissals, that's all in that manual. We've gone through it with a fine tooth comb several times, paid a lot of money to attorneys to do it, to make sure it's right. Our labor attorney says what we have there now is good. Mike says, great, excellent. I'm suggesting that I put it on the agenda for next week and we pass it, whatever there's there. And if you don't agree with it, you can vote no. What do you want me to change?
How in the world can you give us this stuff to look at and it's not correct? I just handed you a copy of what I was given,
That is
and you
a-
say, oh no, this is not it. And in there, it says on the administrative assistant, prepare bills for Horner Park police surveillance. They don't survey Horner Park.
May I correct one thing? I've been talking about attachment one. That description is in attachment one. That's the one thing we can change when we're ready to change it. It has to
Why
be
do
changed.
we vote on something and then you change it?
We have to vote on the change. That
It
is
should
the,
be changed.
we cannot go any longer without the personnel manual policies.
Well, everything should be changed before we vote.
Then let's vote on everything except for that section. Take that section out. We can, because it's an attachment. It is listed as an attachment. Therefore, we can vote on everything else. We're gonna vote on attachments 2 through 11, plus the PERT policies, and they're right.
Everything is not, you have a city administrator, we don't have. a
We took
city
that out there.
It's here,
You took out, you have an old copy,
I do not have an old copy.
and somehow,
Copy is dated August the 12th, 2024.
that should not have been in there. That was taken out.
Well, it's here.
It got in there, when you're working with a bunch of documents on a computer, sometimes you open up the wrong document.
Well, don't tell me it's not in here,
I'll-
George, I'm not blind.
I'll make sure it's out of
I'm
there.
able to see good, but I ain't blind.
Please send me an email with your corrections. Otherwise, if you just say, this is wrong, that's meaningless to me.
But
You've
don't
got to
tell
give it to-
me that it's correct, and I'm telling you
If
it's
you say
not.
the administrative assistant position is in there, it'll be gone by tomorrow morning.
On page 19.
What?
24 too.
George, why do I keep seeing in the policy about illegal concealed firearms dealing with Cook County?
There should be Cook County in there.
You're looking at the wrong.
You're looking at the wrong
You're
thing.
looking at the wrong one.
You're looking at that old one. I said, throw in the
You're looking
shredder.
at the old one.
Look at page 55 on the very latest one here. It's been in every copy prior to it. And it talks about all the places in Cook County, the airport, the zoo, so on. That you can't carry a concealed weapon.
There is no page 55 here. Let me see. We're
Oh,
sitting on
yeah.
page 55.
55, look on N. Any real property under the control.
Oh,
of the
then that's something that was missed by everybody that read it.
I mean, it was
Wait a
so
minute.
obvious, it stands out, you know, like a sore thumb.
Wait a minute, what is that?
About half that page or more than half that page.
They hold on there.
All page 55 needs to go on it.
Yeah. That just somehow that slipped back in. One of the attorneys must have had an old copy and did work on it and sent it to us.
Maybe we need a deputy attorney to take care of it.
Yeah,
You son of a gun.
now I'll go through there. I'll do a search. I will burn midnight oil tonight and do a search. Get it out to you fresh tomorrow. I will get you a fresh copy tomorrow by email. I can't print these things. We're cutting down a tree every time we do it. Send an email that's clean, and yes, Cook County, I don't like Cook County, was in there. It wasn't in the copy that I read when I started this process.
Nobody's, especially after you, George, and stuff, but it is when Mike and those guys, I'll say those guys, because they have 1,552 lawyers in that firm. So, you know, if they got all those lawyers, it's, and the annual income for those 1,552 lawyers is like 702 or $720 million. They should be able to look at something like this. And, you know, it's like eating a piece of candy or something. I mean, it's just a personal opinion.
I don't understand it either, because every copy, I didn't go to those things, but I cleaned that up at one time and sent out the clean copy without that.
That's why I say nobody's, I don't think captured you as this
No,
ideal
it's
that.
just that, you know, we find stuff in here, you think it's gone.
Well,
but
please
it's not.
send me an email with the page. They gave you that instruction. Send me an email with the page and the section, etc., for me to fix, and I'll fix it. To tell me here now doesn't allow me to fix it. I can't fix it, but if you email me the page and the language that has to be changed, I can go to it and fix it. Otherwise, I can't. And if the copy I'm working from doesn't have it, then I'll know that I've been working from my copy and not one I sent to the attorneys. I sent them thing, and somehow they must have merged stuff back together and sent it back to me. Because everything I've sent out has been.
Did you
stuff
send them
like
the one showing that cover?
Well, that's what I gave him,
Oh.
and he threw it down and said it wasn't right.
That's the cover letter, so the most recent one you sent out, right?
Yeah, that's what I sent.
Okay.
But that's because I took something from the attorneys, because they made all kinds of corrections,
Okay.
put the cover on. So they did something.
And then I got another question. I just-
Sure,
The, underneath the grievance procedures.
yeah,
It says, you know, once the grievance is held up and, well, part of it I agree with some of the olives, and that's coming out, but on the section D, it says a vote of 5 of the 8 members of the personnel committee is required to support the decision to terminate him. Is that in there somewhere else?
well, it's gonna be taken out, as a matter of fact,
Why is that?
because. Well, it would be 5 of the 8 members. What had happened was at one time, we had 4-member committee, so it said 3 of 4, so it was changed to 5 of 8. Because there are 8 members of the committee, and that should be in every place that there is a vote like that of a committee. It's 5 of 8,
So it should be the majority of the,
majority of the committee,
majority of the committee.
which is 5 of 8.
Which is the same as the majority of the council.
Yeah, it's 5 of 8.
Yeah, the personnel committee is composed of.
Right, the committee, there are committees of the whole, because we.
That way is, like, with that way, we only have 7.
Right,
It's still,
so we still have some, we could go with the majority vote, but then we have 6 there.
yeah, I understand why we don't.
We want these important decisions to be the entire.
I'm okay with that. I just want to know how it was, and does it say that in here somewhere? Or are you?
I'll have to
You may not
find-
be.
I'll have to do a search for 5 of 8, but you see, you have to have 5 members of the committee present.
Right.
For a meeting, so it would have to be unanimous vote of those present. Send me your corrections, please cite page, language, etc., so I can fix it. Otherwise, I'm doing the job that a lot of other cities have a secretary that handles the work for the council. The paperwork. And this particular thing is driving me crazy. Okay, where I do my agenda again? I keep burying my agenda. I will send you all Heather's letter to me, so you'll understand what she's recommending for the, thing. Now, we can pass, assuming that all the policies themselves are correct. We can pass everything up to we can pass the entire policy, assuming when it's correct, and I will make sure it's correct. And we can say everything but attachment one, but then nobody has a job description. At least if we pass the entire thing, they have a job description. It may not be the right one, but we can go back and fix those, because to fix the job descriptions is gonna take us about 6 months. Because there's gonna have to look at what the unions will say. You know, the union positions, we have to make sure there's not a conflict with the union, and so it takes a long time to change job descriptions when you've got unions involved. But we have to have certain policies in place, because we're getting burned. And I can't discuss in public, but we're getting burned because we didn't have one policy in place. So we've got to make sure this manual is there. Okay. So I'm gonna put it on the agenda for Monday. If you have any corrections to what I'm gonna send out, and please don't go back to an old copy. You're gonna have to make your corrections in my new copy I'm sending out. I'll get you a new thing probably tomorrow morning. I'll wait, I'll get it to you tomorrow morning. I have a cardiology appointment at 8. And I just found out about it at 4:30.
Giving you a heart attack.
Giving me a heart attack.
Yeah.
Not because they thought I had another one I get, but they want me to go in anyway. My pacemaker didn't say I had one, so. Let me scroll down here through my papers. I got mixed up. Where'd my agenda go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So we have the personnel argument finished. Move on for that. Okay. There was the ordinance on chapter 18 of our ordinances for health and safety. Our staff got together and they sent me what you should have received this weekend, an updated ordinance recommendation. And it is different. How can I public can't do it? I have 2 copies of public can't. I'm sorry, I have to search my phone in what current.
That was kind of the red letter edition, I think.
What?
That was the ordinance of the chapter 18 thing was like the red letter,
Yeah,
printed out the red letter. It's got
yeah,
all the
Stephanie,
edition.
there it is. It was a red letter one, and this doesn't have red letters, so I can't tell you exactly. But let me look at it, I'll tell you what section it is. Okay, what the recommendation is that the permits. The following is, the change that's in there is that upon passing a health and safety inspection, properties are eligible for an occupancy permit. That's now in there. There is a paragraph B added that says the following stipulations do not apply to rentals that are permitted as short-term rentals. Short-term rentals have their own ordinance. Then any rental properties of any kind located in the city are subject to a health and safety inspection based on the number of years the rental property has been continuously occupied by the same tenant. Once a tenant has received an occupancy permit, that permit is valid for a minimum of 1 year or a maximum of 4 years from the date of the permit. At the end of 4 years, another health and safety inspection must take place and repeat every 4 years, as long as the same tenant is in the property. Any property subject to a health and safety shall schedule the appointment with the city and permit their first entry. Paragraph E remains the same. Paragraph F is added. Health and safety inspections will remain valid for 1 year or until any of the following occurs. One, change in tenancy in the rental property occurring after 1 year. Two, change of ownership of the rental property. Three, city revokes or suspends the occupancy permit due to city code violation. Or four, the rental property is damaged or destroyed to the extent that it is unsafe or inhabitable. Shouldn't say habitable, should be inhabitable. And then G still is added, there can be a temporary health permit issued when none of the observed violations threaten health and safety or life safety or health. The temporary certificates expire no later than 60 days, but they can be extended upon the inspector's recommendation. And then all occupancy and inspection certificates are not transferable. And those are the major changes. So basically, it's establishing it as a 4-year permit if the property is continuously occupied. If there's a change in tenancy, it's got to be re-inspected. That's the recommendations. You have it in writing. What do you think?
I say move it forward.
There was a question by someone I work with. They were wanting to know, like, as far as who pays for the inspection. I told them it wasn't that expensive to begin with. Honestly, it was like $50 or something like that.
It could be 100, 200.
Well,
But it's the landlord.
okay.
The property owner pays for the inspection. Now, the owner's probably get the money back for raising the rent. Right. Property owner. Yeah, you want to move forward, Pat?
Sure.
Ms. Washington, moving forward? The next week's meeting? But it really plays it up. That was the big complaint, was the number of inspections, and they're too often.
Yeah.
And thank you to Stephanie and the others here in the office. I need that. Okay, everybody on this side, okay? Thank you. Oh, something. Okay, then we received model ordinance from the Illinois Municipal League regarding camping. There's a recent Supreme Court decision that says that cities have a lot more control over homeless camping than we thought we did. We can remove their property, get rid of it, but we would have to have an ordinance in place. IML has a sample ordinance. I don't expect to take action on it even next week. We can wait a couple weeks on it.
Why don't you just vote for it now?
Oh, we'll vote for it next week then. If you think that's a sample ordinance, we would change it to the Lebanon language. Give it to Mike and make sure he can do it. And because anybody, you know, as cities are starting to close down, these encampments are moving. You know, I'm sorry for homeless people. We have to find another way to help them out. But if they come into our city and set up camp anywhere, even on a private property, we would not have the ability to remove it without an ordinance.
Okay, my fault.
But
Let's move on. I'm sorry.
do we want the ordinance for next week?
Pardon me?
Do we want on the agenda for next week, or do you guys want another week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, it seems to me like this organization is from what?
It's the
The
Illinois Municipal League.
United States, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
No, they're citing stuff from it, but the, you know, Illinois Municipal League is, we belong to it as a municipality.
Right, right.
And they have a legal department that does this.
Yeah. Okay,
You think we could put a head on next week's agenda? I'm seeing one nod, two nod. Charlie? Yeah. Ms. Washington? Okay,
We can always blame it on them if it's not.
yeah, we can put it on that.
yeah.
I'll ask Mike to put it in our language. Okay, well, I'm getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Finally, we have the actual ordinance to put the four-way stop on the southwest quadrant. And, the four-way stop in intersections we actually added several on the southeast quadrant. And we discussed those and we move forward with them. Is that one ready to move forward next week? That's the ordinance.
Get Brian down there.
I don't see it. I think we need to have it. Those intersections, those surprised we haven't had no crashes. Okay. And I'm finished with ordinance. But I'll be bringing some other things forward in the near future. For example, we have to eliminate our ordinances for our food trucks. Because the US Supreme Court or the state Supreme Court or state legislature, excuse me. The state legislature passed a statute that says that we cannot control food trucks in municipalities. We can keep them on public property, but we can't require anything rather from them, inspections and everything. So we're gonna remove our ordinances. Finished. Public property,
Public property, number one, I'm gonna discuss electrical circuit at northwest corner of the park on the square. I'm gonna defer that to either Cody or the mayor.
They're working on the, marquee. And they are dividing the electric, to where the police, I assume that's to flash the lights, is separated from ours. It's a bit of a hot mess of electric up there. So I know that we do have a setup for 4 cords to be plugged in, however, that is empty. I did not realize that until last week when I was told that that's only set up pretty much for Fall Festival. So they're gonna be, that's what I know about that. I'm in a meeting tomorrow to see what else I can find out about it. But that's what they went in there last week and found.
Is that something that needs hired out or just get a city do it, or do you know? I'm
I
gonna find that out. Or
hired out, yeah.
Like, and when we use electricians, so when it's come to the limelight, is people want to help Lebanon. Then they defer us to someone they use for electric work, and now we have 5 electricians wiring 1 block. And no schematics. So one guy comes in, doesn't like the other way, or whatever, and changes it, which is fine, there's different ways to do stuff, but I think moving forward as a city. We need to know who the contractor is, we need to know if they're insured, if something happens. Because we've had issues of people coming and putting Ace Hardware, when they hook a trailer up, that they're getting shocked, but we can't find the source of it. We need to make sure that people working in this city are permitted to work within the boundaries of the city. We're gonna hold people to electrical inspections on trailers and rental properties. We should do the same thing when they're wiring city property. I know when we redid the concrete uptown, there was no schematics. Someone said there was no electric. We're busting concrete out and we find 110. That's not a big deal unless you're the guy holding the jackhammer. So we gotta make sure that these people are putting diagrams in and it's submitted and stored away with the city. So when someone comes and asks, hey, Cody, or hey, Luann, whoever, any, if for whatever reason, where does this go? We just don't say. We don't know. So we gotta make sure whoever's doing the work presents us a design, schematic, whatever it would be, so that when we put it in, we can stamp it, approve it, file it away. And when there's an issue, we know where the wires are, where the junction box is, what it's pulling. I don't think we have anything that's gonna be 220 up there, but you gotta know that stuff.
Thanks, Cody. Can you let us know what you find out tomorrow, Sherry?
I'll
Let Cody know, or just
I'll let Cody know.
As long as we have a schematic and then.
It's all because the new marquee is going in. And had to have,
and I just discovered something on the owl. If you're speaking, you need to be able to see the owl. Cause it's going crazy looking for you over here.
That's nice.
It just keeps going like this. Yeah, this next item?
Yeah, number 2, discuss, recommend the possibility of renting or leasing the ½ acre of land by the wastewater treatment plant to the Emerald Mountain Lebanon Fire Department to build a fire department training complex. And I thought Donnie Miller might be here tonight, but he's not. So what I did, I gave you this kind of like an FYI of what land rents out for and how much it is, how much we can make off of renting that 0.52 acres based on the quality of land down there. It's nothing to actually move forward. It's just something to look at. Then if Donnie Miller comes back, we can maybe talk to him. And I attached a map showing where that area is down there. That's all I got.
The residents down there that, Yolanda and I talked to, they don't want that down there. So, we were wondering about that, that area out there. That Oak Grove School Road. No, not there.
No, that's not it. It's
Not
here again. It's the one down.
No, I know where that is, but
Strack Lane by chance or something?
yeah. We were wondering about Strack Lane.
That's where this is. That's not a wastewater treatment.
No. That's not what I'm talking
You're talking about the Oak Grove School thing.
I'm talking about, isn't the one out on four? They said was a floodplain.
Yeah, that's the one down on Oak Grove School.
That's another issue.
That's the one we were wondering if maybe they couldn't use that.
That's a 50-foot wide,
They could build it up. And use that for training.
that's way too close to residents.
It's too far. I think if we go with it, we'll probably have to go with where.
You don't think that's close to residents down there?
That's the map. The closest resident is way down here in the
No,
corner.
there's
No,
a,
across the street.
there's a nice house in the woods up
And
there.
that house in the woods is not in the city.
There was soybeans.
Place there. So.
Across the street, if she's talking about.
I don't know, but see, that house isn't in the city.
Not the one on the strip.
Now you're talking about.
The one up.
No, is that-
You're talking about
Talking Bay prices. There, is that Bay Price?
prices live on McAllister. don't they?
Right. That's
right,
the house.
right here.
Across from there, like, Monica Drive.
That's where they.
That's where the arrow, right here. Isn't that crazy?
Like I said, this is just for your information. We'll try to work on it later on and see what Donnie Miller proposes. I don't know if he has an estimate as to what he would.
All I would do is I would not show him the other. The quality of this property to me would be at least good.
Yeah, to me, it's either fair or average, maybe up to good. That's still not a lot of money, but it's just sitting there making no money and always no crop or anything in it, so I don't see personally don't see any problem with it,
It is not excellent.
no.
Because don't forget, once we establish this rental. If another organization comes to the city, in another part of the city, and wants to do a similar deal with city property, they're gonna wanna pay what they're paying.
Yeah, if it's a similar one, otherwise,
Yeah.
you know,
If it's similar, yeah,
I think it's great.
because if we have property, a city-owned property that's not being used, chances are it's similar to that property.
And it's something good for the community, I mean, if it's a fire,
Oh, yeah, I'm saying you have to
Right.
qualify it and say, for an intergovernmental agreement, we could do this.
Yeah.
But, private person, no way.
Still like you to consider a lease of less than 25 years.
Yeah.
A lot happens in 25 years.
Yeah.
A lot.
no, I agree with that and stuff, I just like to say is the information of what the.
Yeah.
You know,
Just saying, keep that in mind when you're considering it.
Yeah.
because The possibilities, all the things that come down for new testing, we're talking about not being able to apply sludge to lands, all of that requires more space, so, to put a 25-year lease on a piece of property that we might need in that 25 years,
just make sure that it's written very, very good, and I'm not opposed to doing it. Completely, I just, think you need to look at everything involved, and 25 years is a long period.
Well, we
of
have
time.
to get our attorneys work on, so, you know, for example, a clause that says, in the event there are changes that require use of that land.
Yeah, he had that in there. I
Yeah.
still think 25 is a long period of time for a lease.
That's it for me now.
Is that it for you?
Yep.
All right. Streets and alleys.
Okay, I've got under here, we've got to discuss and recommend the approval of Mr. Robert Boswell, the owner of lot number 6 of the Kidstein Edition at 9981 Oak Grove School Road, to abandon 20-foot of Dudley Court Road easement and allow the city to maintain a 30-foot utility easement. To me, that goes back to what Eddie was saying, we don't know what's gonna happen in the next 25 years. If we were to give this over, I think we would be, without, if something happened in the future, in the next 5 years or 10 years, 15 years, to get that back, we would have to purchase that back.
Why can't we
So
rent it for this training?
do what?
Rent it for the training.
It's only a 50-foot wide road easement, there's no, it's not, I don't think it's wide enough for big enough for it.
And there's water and sewer underneath it.
And there's water and sewer that runs, that 30-foot wide easement has water and sewer currently under it.
Oh,
That's where,
Another consideration to me, because this has been, I've heard this from several individuals, that we tend to give away. This property on easements, and they get the property, it's city property, and we're saying, okay, we're just gonna vacate it. There needs to be some consideration for the city for that. Because, even if it's $100, $200, or $1,000, whatever, we have to come up with a way that they're not just giving, we're just like giving away public property. And the transfers of property always require consideration. And consideration could be a lot of things. It could be an exchange, it could be money, it could be maintaining an easement, whatever, but you have to start thinking in those terms. We've given away in the last 8 years a bunch of property that the city should have gotten some consideration for.
you know, well, that same line is it costs us a lot of money to purchase it back.
But it costs us more.
And there's gonna be fees with that, even just giving it away, there's gonna be fees associated with us filing it with the clerk, the county clerk and everything else, so.
There's a lot to it. I'm not in favor of doing that for, you don't know what's gonna happen. I realize that's a floodplain, it can't be residential, can't build on it, but you can build on them if you do them to the right specifications. And so that property could be usable, so
who's gonna maintain it though? If you don't
we don't have to maintain it. All we have to do is cut the grass,
maintain
that's maintaining
it, okay.
it. But if we cut the grass, then that opens it up. Only, if we're gonna do that, we might wanna put a fence down there along both sides of the road so that it prevents, because this biggest problem I think is concerned is that people have been going back there and dumping. So we probably need to fence it.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be an expense to the city anyway. We don't have to fence the whole thing, we just have to fence it so that a vehicle can't get back there.
I would need caution to fencing it, because I don't wanna get up at 2 AM to let Ameren back there, or whoever's gonna have to go back there,
If we gated it
yeah.
with the interlocking, where we could interlock the lock with the camera, but that's done in multiple places. So that we can get in and out.
That was nice, I think one day, I had to call Penny, they had to let them into, place, and it was later in the evening, I'm sure she had better things to do, chase a padlock key down.
Why aren't we exploring Interlochen with them and was?
Was it still in, the lock still intact when you got there? Just asking. When you can't get a hold of them, it's probably going away.
I would suggest that somebody, that you might explore with them and Interlochen for the places that we have to get in and that they have. So that we don't have to, maybe we don't have to get those bills in. Just a suggestion. Anything else, Teresa and Alice?
Had the road project that's going on with, there on Janet with the. I talked to Jeff with TWM, the engineer. And he said that as soon as they finish over here. The part here by the bank shoots, they would be going back, they will cut out a section of your driveway and repair your driveway. And they thought, he would ask them to see what they could do with the guttering at that time, but he didn't say that it wasn't in spec. Cause I knew nothing about the spec, so I'm not pretending I do. Okay, so, but, we would do what we could with that.
Okay.
And
'cause
with
I
that
spoke
menu,
to
with
several
him,
people.
but they're not gone from town yet,
Okay.
and they're still working here
I
in town
spoke to
currently,
several
so.
people from IDOT, but Abel was the only one told me to let you all know that I spoke to him. The other guys right now, they're keeping their identity to themselves, and I am too, but I will get satisfaction. I'm like Rod Stewart, I'm gonna get some satisfaction. But one of my questions to whoever can help me, where do I get the pay item, IDOT pay item sheet? Where this is public record, where do I get that?
You looking for specifics of what was done on the project?
That,
I don't know, I've never. It's broken down.
oh yeah, this broken down, how IDOT told me.
Have to file a FOIA request with the city. And we'll FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request for the financials on that project. And the city has to provide it to you.
I know, but I'm asking, and everyone, yeah,
No, that does, the FOIA, if they're looking at money and expenditures, it'd be the accountant. not the
So there's a FOIA.
All employees go through the clerk.
FOIA's like that.
okay, I'll be here tomorrow,
Thank you.
thank you.
Did we resolve anything on the, Oak Grove School Road?
Apparently, is there a consensus to vacate it or not?
I like to see somebody, pay money for it. I mean, we're really we're kinda like a bank, you know? There's nothing free, so, they should pay for it. Okay, at a certain sum. And then. And for the next 100 years, they're gonna have to pay taxes on. So,
Yeah. It becomes taxable.
it's a win-win situation. I think. So that's where I'm coming from, trying to find some money.
Anybody else? I agree with that. We just have to figure out what the value of the property is and the square footage and where it goes is on fair market, fair value.
And we're not out to,
I mean, you could figure out the acreage, or whatever it was.
Yeah, the acre.
What's what I gave you tonight,
That's what we do when we're doing a right of way for bike trail, is we figure out the square footage in terms of acreage and make an offer on fair market value.
we're not trying to,
No,
do it to them. But my goodness sake, we can't just give this ground away.
and you can also have a conditional deed that that if the city needs it, we get it back.
Yeah, I don't believe all that, make a sale, make a sale.
well, Bobby, you were wanting to say, what'd you say? Say did you wanna just move it forward for a vote and just leave it as it is?
The way it is now, I would say we just, we keep it. I mean, to me, if they wanted to put an offer to us as a city to to purchase that 20 foot. I think we could look at that, but, as it is now, because right now they're just wanting. Basically, they just wanted to abandon it and give it, let it go back to the property owners that are there.
So I was wondering, I was looking at what the plan commission, I don't know how that fits in, but they wanted unanimously to, you know what I'm saying, for the city to abandon that for Mr. Boswell or whatever and stuff. So Bob, you're saying you just want to leave, you don't want to abandon it, right? Okay. So that still needs to be, does that still need to be voted on?
Yeah, we would have to vote on it and defeat the vote next week. Okay. Would have to be voted on, and if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't pass, then he doesn't get the land.
So I have to make a recommendation, so we'll move forward as a recommendation,
We'll move forward as a recommendation.
and then we'll vote on it. Okay. So we'll move that forward to make a vote, and, we'll make the vote, that's what it'll be.
Okay, the next item, the person who really is controlling that item isn't here. Finance chair. It's the compensation for elected officials in our new positions. And that's the guy, that she's the one that's supposed to make the budget. Is there any unfinished or any new business?
I just have a question, like a kind of a straw poll here. We have a drinking fountain sitting right inside that door there. It's not hooked up. Does anyone want it hooked up? Or they want to get a new one that has, where you could buy the bottled water and you put cups under there? You know, paper cups or what? Or just leave it as is?
Why isn't it hooked up? Is it a plumbing issue or?
I'm not sure. Do you know, Sharon?
Burned out?
It sits right behind Cody. I don't think it works, Cody, does it?
It does not work.
It does not work.
It hasn't worked for years.
Is that where it was originally?
I believe so.
The only thing we gotta look into, I think you have to have like a touchless regulation since COVID, they had some stipulations with water fountains.
I mean, it would have to be probably a new unit or whatever and stuff.
I'd say let's get the hurt done.
We should have drinking water available in the building.
That's what I'm getting, that's what the bottom line is.
I would get one of those 5-gallon water things and dispensers. And I think the water companies, for the fee of having them replace it every month, will provide the stand.
Sounds good.
As a water supplier, I would,
Huh?
that is pretty bad for the city to be purchasing something to serve water. As if our own water isn't drinkable.
Oh, we have
You
to have
know,
a dispenser.
I'm just saying, it just doesn't make sense to me to purchase water from somebody else and we have our own water.
And a lot of it, huh?
We wouldn't have to pay the bill.
If we buy one bottle and then use it, then do you redo refills? Okay.
The other option is for Cody to go out and explore the cost of a fountain.
If you really want to provide some water, I mean, you have.
Two sinks.
Yeah, 2 sinks.
And be more than happy to get you that.
Okay,
That's all I got.
whatever. Anything else for any other new business that we couldn't recommend it, but we could discuss it?
Was there something that came out regarding these intersection?
The intersections? It's a
Four-way
recommend-
stop?
Yeah, there's a recommendation to move forward with that.
Oh, what was that?
We were discussing-
When you in town, you know, we are talking and
It's actually the second time it's come up. It was already on the city council agenda. And we
You will.
voted to move forward with it.
I must admit, I don't really know all these streets, but I tell you,
Those are,
anytime you get a four-way stop, that's a good deal.
those are all the 4-way stops in
You
the
can
city
get those.
with the additional 3. We're adding 3. Now, it doesn't mean people will stop, but we're adding 3.
Well, but you know what? That's what we got a police department for, enforce the law.
Well, sir, is there any other business? If there's no other business, then we're adjourned.
God. You know what, that's gonna cost you, yes, sir.